calling a mother?
You are the great goddess, mother of all. You have come to release our imprisoned brethren and set us free. Malice be praised.
Take a look at my figure, big boy. I ain't mother of nothing. I'll see what I can do about your prisoners, though.
Explore the Fire Fortress, release bird resistance prisoners, and see if you can find any help.
You know, I think Malice's personality may be the worst part of the game for me. We're using our new spell here, the one that completely negates all damage. This is the ideal place to use it because there are projectile crows giving support to melee crows. So the bullet shield magic by itself wouldn't do. Of course, this only applies if you're insistent on not getting hit. You can still definitely tank all of this. But I still think this was the best possible situation to show off our new shield spell. After we've removed all the projectile crows, we're left with the basic melee crows, which are very easily disposed of. They're not even a fragment of a challenge at this point in the game, really. They never were at the start, come to think of it. Many of the heart pots are up on these platforms, which we need to use crates to reach. And there actually is another heart pot in this hallway that I accidentally ran right past, but we'll come back for it after I realize I missed it. This level is a very hard step back in linearity after the previous levels where we were running around an open area looking for collectibles. I don't really have an opinion on which level layout is better. I suppose you could say this level is far more combat focused, which better suits the linearity. And I do think that's intentional. I do think they were aware of what design they should use in general, dependent on which level layout they were going with. And there is some thought put into the enemy placement, obviously. It's just a shame they forgot to make the enemies actually difficult to fight. In this room we're introduced to a new enemy type, the metallic crows. And I don't recall what their attacks are like because I don't let them hit us. They do take a lot more hits than any of the other enemies we've fought this far, but they are very easily stun-locked by our hammer, so it doesn't really matter. Right here I want to use the double damage spell, but I accidentally used the shield magic spell at first, but that's okay, we fixed it. The idea was to use the double damage spell so that way we could get rid of both big crows quickly and avoid being caught in their crossfire, but as you saw, that was unnecessary. I was trying to add strategy where there didn't need to be any. You may recall in previous levels that sometimes the heart pots were hidden inside crates, so of course we're going to search all these crates for a heart pot. And the heart pot isn't in the crates themselves, but we will get a heart pot for smashing them. I like the way that the remnants of the crate just melt into the ground. They don't fade out or anything, they just melt downward. I wonder if that was a deliberate stylistic choice. Like maybe they did it without thinking about it. Or maybe it was something that they did actively because they thought it looked neat. I mean, even if I could get a hold of the former developers that worked at Argonaut Games, I doubt they would even remember a small detail like that. That's a thing you risk, even if you get a hold of the developers that worked on something like this. They may not even remember what it was like. Though in this case I could see there being an exception because Malice's development was so troubled. And this definitely seems like something Argonaut Games was working on because they wanted to. Nobody commissioned this and nobody was really behind it. They still had to find a publisher, of course, but I'm not sure anyone had faith that this would sell. In fact, the publisher they did get was a budget games publisher. Like, they published games that definitely didn't have a real chance of succeeding, but were made at a small budget so there wasn't much to lose. It's a little depressing that's what Argonaut Games had to go with, considering how long they worked on Malice. The publisher, by the way, was Mud Duck Studios, and anyone could probably see they weren't going to stick around too long. They only lasted from 2002 to 2007, but they published things like PS1 games in 2002, so it doesn't seem like a very solid business strategy to me, and I'm not sure anyone even knows what Gubble is. I don't think anyone in America bought Gubble. You know, there were a few other times this was done. I believe Dragon Ball Ultimate Battle 22 was published for quick cash because they knew that people would buy a game that was previously import only when the show was so popular. And the Hellboy game, Hellboy Asylum Seeker, for PS1 was ported from PC very quickly to coincide with the film release, just to make a quick buck as well. But those had a market is the thing. I don't think Gubble had a market. All I'm saying is that if you're gonna publish a PS1 game in 2002 or 2003, you better have a market in mind, and Mud Duck Productions clearly did not have a market in mind. Anyway, we just grabbed that crystal heartbot that we left behind before, and now we can head into this door on our right, finally. The security in this next room is underwhelming to say the least, especially considering the first hallway started with a bang. It wasn't a big bang, mind you, but the enemy placement was smart, and if you didn't want to get hit, you actually had to think. Not so much here. I mean, you saw how there was an enemy that spawned and I was able to just walk away from it. If he were there from the start, we wouldn't be able to just walk away like that. Maybe for some reason they were worried having a big crow spread across the melee crows would be a little too difficult. But it wouldn't be, especially when we have a spell that negates all damage. That would have been another excellent place to use it. And yes, I was purposely avoiding fighting the crow as long as possible just to show you how much of a joke it was, but now we're finally gonna fight it. It's a real shame that everything about this game is so average. It's inoffensive, but I mean, there's nothing here to praise in the design, not a single thing I can think of that's outstanding. Anyway, that was the first level in the Fire Fortress, not nearly as formidable as the Metal Guardian made it out to be.
Malice Almighty, it's her, the great goddess. Say, dude, I told you she existed, and there's you worshiping that blue hedgehog. Forgive me, oh cute-blooded one. Your arrival has been promised for so long, I began to doubt I'd ever see you.
Yeah, well, I've had a few technical problems to deal with. What are you guys here for?
We're kind of like secret agents and stuff, you know? We got a mission to, like, inflate some planes. Blow up! We got to blow up the planes! Dude, that's the same thing, ain't it? Chill out.
You're gonna need my help, right?
You're not kidding. Do me a favor and take these and blow up the planes. This guy's doing my nut. Hey, careful with them explosives, man. I hear they can, you know, like, explode and stuff. Hey, I heard that too. You heard right. Jump or fall too far and, well, I'm not scraping goddess off the walls. Good luck. Use the plunger, mother. It sets off the bombs.
Today, please?
So this level is really a complete joke. We just have to grab these bombs, walk down, attach them to the planes, and then walk back up. Really, there's nothing to this. It's not challenging in the slightest, it just involves a lot of waiting. So anyway, while we have the time, I said that my least favorite part of this game's personality might be Malice's personality. And it may not be for the reasons you anticipate, because I said, if you recall, that I like the dissonance that comes with having loud personalities in a fantasy setting. You know, all that good spunk and sass. But Malice isn't sassy or loud or spunky. And she's supposed to be. But they screwed it up. She just isn't. She isn't nearly as loud or sassy as she should be for a game like this. It's the biggest failing in my eyes. And on top of that, the voice actor is absolutely terrible at delivering her lines. I think I made a comment about that back in video 2, maybe, about how I think her design is supposed to be a stark contrast to the fantasy setting, but her voice acting isn't nearly enthusiastic and sassy enough. Everybody else's voice and delivery matches their characters except for Malice. Malice sounds dull and bored, and she's supposed to be the main character, so that's a terrible, terrible thing. And I don't want to blame all of that on the delivery. Her character isn't written very well either. She seems like a severely watered down version of what they were actually going for. All the other characters do a far better job being weird and loud than Malice does. They add so much more to the setting than she ever could. And she's the main character, so that's a problem. Okay, so now that we're done with that chore, all of the planes explode and inexplicably crows spawn in their place. You figure the crows would have exploded too, right? Maybe the crows spawned in after the planes explode and they weren't actually in the planes? But then why did only 6 of them spawn? And why did they spawn in the exact spot where the planes used to be, if they weren't in the planes? Hey look, it's a single big crow. A single one. I wonder what we'll do.
Wow, a gene lab. Sweet. I could use some new hipsters. I got gloop all over this pack.
You need your hammer. Use the vents to get out of your cell and see if you can find a way through. Find some key cards.
I disagree immensely with the idea that we lost to a single melee crow from behind when we have 11 hearts. I mean, I know it was just because it had to happen in the story, but I'm sure if Malice got hit in the back of the head during actual gameplay, that wouldn't happen. Anyway, this ventilation system is the only area we can access from our cell, and there are only a few pathways we can go down because the rest are blocked by fans. In my experience, this is the easiest level in the game to get lost in, but it's not even that difficult. You figure out fairly quickly which way you can't go.
Locking me up here at my age? It's disgusting. This cell's too drafty for one thing. The food's terrible, and no one ever bothers to come and visit. No respect for the elderly. That's the problem. It's not like I didn't once hide an access key in there somewhere. But does anyone bother to crawl up and ask me about it? Do they? Heck! Too busy sitting around playing video games, I shouldn't wonder. Take this. I'll never fly again.
With the keycard we can progress to the main part of the level, which is stealth.
Careful! This place is crawling with guards. Don't run, or they'll hear you. Walking quietly should do the trick. Use the security camera screens, too.
And that was the Metal Guardian telling us bold-faced lies about the stealth segment. We don't need to walk slowly, and we can run all we want as long as the crows have their backs turned against us. I do believe these stealth segments appeared in advertising for the game, in a pre-release material. And they do show Malice sneaking. They do show her tiptoeing around, which I assume is what the Metal Guardian wanted us to do, but it's not necessary. So it's incredibly false advertising. False advertising for a segment that no one would enjoy anyway, because this game isn't built for stealth. But still, I noticed it. And really, would anyone benefit from more developed stealth mechanics in this game? As it is right now, it's just a minor distraction. You know, it's not even difficult. It may be even less difficult than the basic platforming and combat. You just have to pay the minimal amount of attention to what's happening, and you'll be able to stealth through this just fine. It isn't even a memorable part of the experience, which is for the better.
Take this. I stole it from a guard. It should get you into the room where your stuff is. Probably unlock your cell too, if you're lucky. To be honest, I'm glad to get rid of it. I've had to hide it in quite a personal place, if you get what I mean. Probably best if you don't put it too near your mouth.
Ew!
Considering we seem to store everything in a magic interdimensional pocket, I don't think we need to worry about that. As the Metal Guardian said, we can use the security screens to see where the crows are and whether they're moving away from us, which is helpful, but we can also just peek the camera around the corner as well. The in-game camera, I mean, not the security camera. So there's no reason to even use the security cameras. I guess the functionality is cute, but the stealth section is already over.
Ah, your hammer.
And now things are back to normal. We can go around smacking crows with our big hammer again, and the game resumes its normal level of mediocre challenge. And its normal level of V-Sync issues, which don't think I didn't notice the screen tearing game. I can see the screen tearing a mile away. For some reason I thought there was a collectible down this hole, but there isn't. Maybe the idea here is that because we're fighting the crows in such an enclosed space, they would be more difficult to deal with, but it doesn't pan out that way. I mean, I guess having extra movement would make it slightly easier, but it's not like extra movement was pivotal to the combat so far. I believe there was that one time in this world where we walked around Big Crow's gunfire, but for the most part, all the movement we've been doing in combat was jumping and double jumping, and we still definitely had enough room to do that back in that tiny hallway, so... We didn't need to come back up in this vent, by the way, but there are a couple of crystal heartbots in here, and I am determined to get them. Even if we miss them sometimes because I turned too early. I wonder if I could do a Malice speedrun. I would say yes, but I'm sure there are some glitches that I don't even know about that would be easy to exploit. Like, I'm sure there's someone out there that knows if you use the smash attack in just the right spot, you teleport through 5 walls and end up at the final boss fight. I'm exaggerating, of course, because I don't watch speedruns of games unless I've already Let's Played them. Because if I watch a speedrun and see some tactics to exploit the game design, I can't use them in my Let's Play now. Because I found them elsewhere instead of finding them naturally while playing. That's just how I feel about it. All the exploits and glitches and nonsense you see in my videos, that's stuff that I discovered while playing naturally. I didn't get that from anyone else. Because the idea is that I just discovered them by thinking about the design.
Hey, am I like totally stoked or what?
Slow magic puts enemies into slow motion. Pull and hold the right trigger and press the X button twice.
I hope that you see the humor in this situation. They just introduced a new fast enemy type that would actually be difficult to fight, in this same room that they introduced magic to slow down time, thus making the enemies a cakewalk like everything else in the game. Bravo!
Meet your nemesis, little girl. Hand-built by deranged scientists, driven by an unquenchable thirst for blood, and awarded 5 stars by what mutant magazine? Tremble before my unholy mutaton!
You'll need to use your hammer against this hideous mutaton. Hit him hard!
You don't say, Metal Guardian. I need to use my hammer to hit the boss. What a novel concept. The idea behind Mutaton is fairly simple. He uses a couple of attacks and then starts flashing blue, and that's when he's vulnerable. He's capable of summoning vines to chase us, swinging at us with his tentacle, like that, or summoning zombies. The tentacle attack is so easy to avoid, I'm not sure why they bothered with it. As always, we want to turn on our damage boost before we hit him, otherwise this fight will take far too long. The roots he summons to chase us are the most difficult attack to avoid, but they can be jumped over if you time it properly. You can also walk around them as I tried to right there, but that is more difficult. Yeah, see, double jumping over them is much easier. He's not a very formidable boss battle, but then again I suppose you could say that about every boss in this game. He just summons zombies, which you figure might spice things up a bit, but they're zombies. They move very slow and they're not a threat. We can easily dispatch them with our hammer or ignore them altogether, which is what I usually do unless they get in the way of us actually hitting Mutaton. Sometimes they act as a bit of a shield. And I guess having the zombies act as a shield would be a pretty okay way to go with the design if it were intentional, but I really don't think it's intentional. I think them acting as a shield is entirely incidental. I always love how much the Metal Guardian and Dog God build up these boss battles, like they're gonna seriously wreck Malice's shit, and then they're just complete pushovers. I don't think anything is going to beat that time where Dog God thought the rats were a serious challenge for us, though. I think that's as deep as it goes.
Whoa!
I've made you a little something by way of a thank you for all your hard work. Use it just like your hammer, and it will cut all your enemies down like so much chaff. I think you'll find it has a very pleasing action. I call it the quantum tuning fork.
Wow, cutlery.
I do hope you like the fork, my dear. I made it all by myself. Why don't you test it out by giving that awful Juju fellow a jolly good seeing to? This time I'm certain he holds the next key.
That guy's butt is so mine.